Tucker, and we hope you're having a good day. Today, I have a huge book haul for you, so big, in fact, that I think I have a shopping problem. I have somewhere in the neighborhood of 59 books to share with you between shopping at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Book Outlet. My biggest purchase was at Book Outlet. They had a huge $5.99 fiction sale in February, and it lasted for like the entire month of February. And so I put in like 4 different orders. So combined, I think I ordered like over 40 books through them, and I didn't pay any more than $5.99 for hardcovers, paperbacks. There were a few special editions, but I'm really excited. I think I have a lot of really good books to share with you. And yeah, what do you think, Tucker? Oh. Okay, so let's start with Amazon. I only got a few books from Amazon, and the books that I got, I think I could only actually get at Amazon because I haven't seen them anywhere else. The first one is actually a really recent release. It's called The Serendipity by Emma St. Clair. This is a cozy, witchy romance. I actually started it a few days ago because I was so excited to get it. So I'm like 80 pages in. It's really good so far. It's about a no-nonsense businessman who meets a baker in a magical building that the guy just bought, and the building thinks that they're perfect for each other, and so the magic in the building is trying to set these two up. It's really good so far. The other books I got are actually a continuation of a series that I read when I was a teenager, and believe it or not, I still have those books. I have a really, really hard time getting rid of any books that I buy unless I just completely hate the book. If I like the book, I keep it. This bookshelf is not representative of the number of books that I have. I have a lot more bookshelves throughout my house. I'm just not showing them right now. But there was a series that I read by L.J. Smith when I was in high school called The Secret Circle. And so these are the original copies that I have. It was originally a trilogy. It was by the same author that wrote The Vampire Diaries, which I also read. But this trilogy was one of my favorites, which is why I kept it. So the first one was called The Initiation. Oh yeah. The second one was called The Captive. And the third one was called The Power. And it is basically about a coven of witches, teenage witches. Some of them don't know that they have a witchy history, and so this girl grows up apart from the rest of her coven because her mom kind of denounces all magic, moves very far away, and then needs to return for some reason and bring her teenage daughter Cassie. And then when they move somewhere close to Salem. I don't think it's actually Salem. It's like New Salem, I think is what it's called. Forgive me if I'm wrong, because it has been about 25 years since I've read these books. But they move back to this small town that's very near Salem, and she starts to notice these weird things happening, and eventually it's a teenage coven with all of the teenage tropes that you love to read. Anyways, I loved this series. So I don't know what led me to look on Amazon, but I think I saw something and I found out that there are more books in the series that have been written. They were written, I think, around 2013, 2014, something like that. But there were 3 more books in the series that had been written, and I haven't read them, and so I went a little crazy and I purchased the rest of the series. So that's why the covers are different, because these were printed more recently. And I don't know what order these are in. This one is called The Divide. I have no idea if this is book 4, 5, or 6. And I don't know how, but I ended up with 2 copies of the same book. This is the first instance of me having multiple copies of the same book. This one is called The Temptation. One of these is probably going back. And then the other one is called The Hunt. So 4, 5, and 6. And so I have no idea what happens in these ones, but I'm really excited to get to these ones. And that's all I got from Amazon. Okay, so the next place I did a little shopping at was Barnes & Noble, and just a small haul from Barnes & Noble. There are just a few books in here. The first one that I picked up, I mentioned in my previous video about exciting new releases coming up. This is Our Infinite Fates. It's a YA fantasy romance novel about two people who have fallen in love over many different lifetimes, but in each lifetime, the girl gets killed before her 18th birthday, and she finds herself in her current life that she loves very much and does not want to die in, and she has to figure out how to break the curse before it's too late. And this is a really pretty copy. I think it's a deluxe Barnes & Noble special edition. It's got gold on the edges and a really pretty magenta color. The next one I picked up, was on the buy one get one 50% off table. And so I always want to take advantage of that. And so I got A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. This is a special edition that actually includes all 39 endings that Ernest Hemingway originally wrote for this novel. I've never actually read it, but it is a classic. It's been around a long time. I have read other Ernest Hemingway's novels in high school, and so I thought this one would be a good one. I always hear about it, hear that it's an amazing story, but I've never actually read it, so I hope to start this one soon. Written when Hemingway was 30 years old and lauded as the best American novel to emerge from World War I, A Farewell to Arms is the unforgettable story of an American ambulance driver on the Italian front and his passion for a beautiful English nurse. Set against the looming horrors of the battlefield, this gripping, semi-autobiographical work captures the harsh realities of war and the pain of lovers caught in its inexorable sweep. The other one that I got on the buy one get one 50% off table is Flowers for Algernon. This is another classic, been around for a long time. I've never actually read it. It's by Daniel Keyes, and again, it's another one that I feel like I should have read at some point in my life, but I just haven't, so I'm excited to have picked it up. It is about a boy, Charlie Gordon, who is about to embark upon an unprecedented journey. Born with an unusually low IQ, he has been chosen as the perfect subject for an experimental surgery that researchers hope will increase his intelligence, a procedure that has already been highly successful when tested on a lab mouse named Algernon. Let's see, the next book I got, is actually a middle grade novel. It is called The Whisperwicks, The Labyrinth of Lost and Found. I do like to pick up middle grades every once in a while. I have 3 kids, and so I have a lot of books for them sitting around the house, and I always am looking for new stories to share with them. And this one is a fantasy novel, I believe, about an 11-year-old boy named Benjamiah Creek who believes in science, logic, and the power of reason. He definitely does not believe in magic, but when he receives a mysterious doll in the mail, a doll that can transform into a bird, he is led into an impossible and most definitely magical world. Sounds great. Let's see. I've got 2 more books in here. Yes. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So this is another one. Heard a lot of really great things about. Never actually read it. And so again, it was on the buy one get one 50% off table. And so I figured, why not? The last book that I have was also on the buy one get one 50% off because, I've given you 3, so this is the 4th one. Another classic, this is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Again, this is the 20th anniversary edition. So I haven't physically read this book, but I did listen to the audiobook years and years ago when the movie came out. And I remember liking it. and so I thought I should have a physical copy of it. And I may get around to reading it again sometime, but I mean, I have like 60 books to share with you, so I have no idea when I'm actually going to read all of these books. I haven't thought that far ahead just yet. That brings us to what I got at Book Outlet. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I seem to have a book buying problem, especially when it comes to Book Outlet. I went a little crazy, and this is where the majority of the books come from. So I'm just gonna kind of rapid fire through them. I'll probably stop at a few of them, but honestly, I ordered so many books, I don't even really remember what I ordered. But I do know that there were some duplicates, and I ordered a book that I, again, already owned and didn't realize that I owned until after I ordered it. So the first one is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. I heard a lot about Lucy Foley. I haven't actually read any of her books, but I do happen to like thrillers, and this one was getting a lot of talk on BookTube. The next one I have is The Last House on the Street by Diane Chamberlain, another thriller mystery, I think. And then I have Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken. So this is another duplicate copy of a book that I already owned that I didn't know I owned. It's back here. Let's see, where is it? Oh, yes. So the reason I have multiple books is because I had an OwlCrate subscription for a few years, but I get periods where I can't read. And so the books would get delivered, and then I would open them and I would look at them, and then I would put them on the shelf, and I would kind of forget about them. And so that happened with Silver in the Bone. So this is actually a special edition. It's the OwlCrate edition. It's actually very pretty. I mean, you can see the difference right here, the paperback and the hardback. But I think this edition is way prettier. It's got silver sprayed edges. It's got the back here, and then usually there's, ooh, I've never actually looked at this book. So this is the bear book. It's really pretty, actually. And then the inside papers are also very pretty. I think they're the same on the back, yeah. And then the artwork on the inside of the cover is just gorgeous. So between the two, I'll be keeping this copy, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with the paperback copy I just bought, but it sounded like a good fantasy. I liked the description, and I have read Lore by Alexandra Bracken. That was actually one of my early OwlCrate books, and I really highly enjoyed that one. So I think I'll enjoy this one as well. So the next one I have is The Coven by Harper L. Woods. And again, this actually came from Book Outlet, but it is a special edition. You can see the sprayed edges here, the roses, and I don't know, the end papers are really pretty, the roses. So sometimes you can really score a good book for relatively inexpensive. But this is another fantasy book that I picked up. Again, following, I believe, the fantasy theme is the 10th anniversary edition of The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I think it's Shannon. It's covered up by this sticker here. But again, another really pretty copy. This takes place in the year 2059. For 2 centuries, the Republic of Sion has led an oppressive campaign against unnaturalness in Europe. In London, Paige Mahoney holds a high rank in the criminal underworld. The right hand of the ruthless White Binder, Paige is a dreamwalker, a rare and formidable kind of clairvoyant. Under Sion law, she commits treason simply by breathing. Continuing with fantasy, I have A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. And this story sounded really intriguing. I'd heard a lot about it on various booktube channels, and so I thought this was a good opportunity to pick this book up. Oh, and it's got really pretty end papers as well. I don't know that this is a special edition necessarily, but these are quite pretty. Let's see. Oh, look at that. A very nice binding. The next book I have, I believe, is a thriller called Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. The next book I have is The Dead Guy Next Door by Lucy Score. Again, I have not read this author, but I heard about a lot of her books, and people seem to enjoy them quite a bit. And this one in particular sounded really good to me. A nice normal life, is that too much to ask? For Riley Thorne, it is. Divorced, broke, living with a pack of elderly roommates, and those hallucinations Riley's diligently ignoring. Her mom is convinced Riley must be clairvoyant, just when things seem like they can't get worse. So hot he should be illegal. Private investigator shows up on her doorstep looking for the guy next door, who turns up murdered. Romance, murder, comedy, perfect. The next one I have is The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. This is a really pretty cover. It's not a special edition or anything like that, but the edges are those, uneven kind of edges. They have a nice soft feel to them. I'm a tactile person. I love reading physical books over ebooks because I just love the feel of having a book in my hand and turning the pages. It's probably because I'm old and, I did most of my reading before Kindle existed, but there's something to be said about holding a book in your hand. But I believe this is a historical fiction mystery, yes. Washington, D.C., 1950. A haunting and powerful story of female friendships and secrets in a Washington, D.C. boarding house during the McCarthy era. The next book I have is a fantasy book. I think it's been out for quite a while. It's The Magicians by Lev Grossman. The reason I picked this book up is because there is a series, I believe it started out on the Sci-Fi Channel and then it went to Netflix, but there is a series called The Magicians that I started watching ages ago, and then I stopped. I had a big life event happen, and so I didn't watch TV for a long time, and then I only recently went back to it and finished it. I believe there's 5 seasons, but I love it. It's a fantasy show and it was really good. So this time around, when I watched it, I was watching the credits and I realized that the whole show is based on a book or a series of books, which I found to be awesome. So when I saw that Book Outlet had The Magicians and it was relatively inexpensive, I thought I would read the book and do a comparison to see whether the book is better or the show is better. I usually think the book is better. Next up, I have Stephen King's latest work, or near latest. This book was released last year, I believe. It's called You Like It Darker. It's a series of short stories that Stephen King wrote and put together. I believe this was the Goodreads 2024 pick for Best Horror, although I have read mixed opinions on whether or not this book should have won. I have not actually read a Stephen King novel, mainly because they scare me, because they're enormous. I do have one other book that he wrote fairly recently called Fairy Tale or Fairy Tales. I intended to read that one. I think I got one chapter in, and I stopped it not because I didn't like it. I had a medical issue where I couldn't read for a long time, and so I just kind of forgot about it after a while. But I figured a short story or a series of short stories is a great way to go. Next book I have is a YA fantasy thriller just a thriller, maybe not a fantasy, not really sure. It's The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Again, I believe this is a really popular series. She's on to a new series now, I believe. But it sounded great, along the lines of Hunger Games, which I love. So I thought I'd give it a shot. The next one I have is actually a banned book. It's Animal Farm by George Orwell, and it's actually one of the few older kind of banned controversial books that have been around that I actually never read in high school. And so I saw Animal Farm on there. I wanted some other ones too, but they didn't have any other ones. But I figured that this would be a good one to pick up. It's nice and short, and I've always wanted to read it. I don't know why I never did, but now I can. The next one I have is another mystery thriller called The Manor House by Gilly Macmillan. And be careful what you wish for is what it says on the cover. And I mean, that's super true. I don't really remember what else was on here. Let's see. Childhood sweethearts, Nicole and Tom are a normal, loving couple until a massive lottery win changes their lives overnight. Soon they moved into a custom-built, state-of-the-art glass barn on the stunning grounds of Lancott Manor in Gloucester, I think, England. They have fancy cars, expensive hobbies, and an exclusive lifestyle they never could have imagined. But this dream world quickly turns into a nightmare when Tom is found dead in the swimming pool. Okay, the next one I have is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. Holly Jackson is quickly becoming one of my new favorite authors. I am currently working my way through the Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy. I guess it's a trilogy, yeah. And so I've heard a lot of good things about Holly Jackson's other books and saw this one and decided to pick it up. Speaking of being a new big Holly Jackson fan, I also picked up the reappearance of Rachel Price, which I think I heard this one is better than 5 Survive, but I'll read them both and I'll let you know. The next one I have is Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. Another author I've never read before. I always love a good romance, and this one seemed like a good one to start with. Allie Morris is a professional organizer whose own life is a mess. Her mom died 2 years ago, then her husband left, and she hasn't worn pants with a zipper in longer than she cares to remember. I mean, we can all relate to that. Right, ladies? I think we can. The next one I have is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. I think I heard several people recommend this one if you liked Carmilla, that this is kind of a retelling. I haven't actually read Carmilla. I did pick it up in a previous book haul. I haven't decided whether I'm going to wait until the fall, spooky season to read that one or not. But again, I thought it would be interesting to pick this up as a comparison because it's fairly inexpensive. The next one I have is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I am definitely butchering that last name. I'm really sorry. When I read the description of this one, it sounds so different. Assistant wanted. Notorious high-ranking villain seeks loyal, level-headed assistant for unspecified office duties, supporting staff for random mayhem and terror, and other dark things in general. Discretion a must. Excellent benefits. This just sounds like it's going to be really funny and a different take. The next book I have is How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. Tom Hazard has just moved back to London to settle down and become a history teacher. But while he may look like an ordinary 41-year-old, owing to a rare condition, he's been alive for centuries. He has lived history firsthand, performing with Shakespeare, exploring the high seas with Captain Cook, and sharing cocktails with Fitzgerald. Now he just wants a normal life. Yeah, sounds great. The next book I have is Snow and Poison by Melissa De La Cruz. This is obviously, a retelling of Snow White. I think I said in a previous video, I love retellings of fairy tales, we think we know, because there's always a different take. Okay, next up is the next in my list of duplicate books that I purchased. I really don't know how this happened, but I ended up with 2 copies of The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. Honestly, I don't know how or why this keeps happening to me. It's annoying. But again, I hadn't heard of this book until I really started watching a bunch of BookTube recently. And this is, I don't think it's like a super special edition, but maybe like sort of a special edition, but it's got the purple sprayed edges. And it's really pretty. Yeah, I think it's just like, it's probably the regular edition. It's probably not the special edition, but it's really pretty. And the cover is just really cozy, and it makes you just want to curl up with a nice cup of tea and read the book. Next, I picked up The Paris Library by Janet Skeslin Charles. This is a historical fiction novel based in Paris, 1939, which is in the midst of World War II, and I believe it takes place during the Nazi occupation of Paris. It also, I guess, takes place in Montana in 1983, so there's a bit of a timeline jumping element here. I also got The Bad Ones by Melissa Albert. This is one of her more recent books. I believe it came out last year. In the course of a single winter's night, 4 people vanish without a trace across a small town. Nora's estranged best friend Becca is one of the lost. As Nora tries to untangle the truth of Becca's disappearance, she discovers a darkness in her town's past, as well as a string of coded messages Becca left for her to unravel. These clues lead Nora to a piece of local lore, a legendary goddess of forgotten origins who played a role in Nora and Becca's own childhood games. An arresting crossover horror fantasy threaded with dark magic, The Bad Ones is a poison pen love letter to semi-toxic best friendship, the occult power of childhood play and artistic creation, and the razor-thin line between make-believe and belief. Another fantasy book I picked up is The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind. This I don't think is a special edition necessarily, but it does have some really pretty sprayed edges here. Or maybe it is a special edition. It's also got some really pretty end papers here. Let's see what the other side, oh! And the binding itself is really pretty, look at that. It looks like a library filled with books. And then, let's see, the same end papers. This one I believe is a fantasy. I don't know if it's an adult fantasy or YA. The tagline is, "Can you love the dark when you know what it hides? Some things aren't supposed to exist outside of our imagination." This one I know is a YA novel. It's called The Island by Natasha Preston. And it involves a bunch of social media creators that go to an island that has a seemingly awesome amusement park, except I believe they become trapped on the island and have to figure out how to get off before they all get killed. And I have to say the biggest reason why I picked this up is the cover is just really intriguing. It's got this kind of decrepit looking roller coaster ride situation. It all looks very creepy and perilous. I also picked up The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. This is another author that I've never read before, but I've heard a lot about The Housemaid, and I considered picking that one up, but I decided that The Locked Door sounded more interesting to me at the time that I was shopping. So, another thriller mystery pick. Then I got One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is another YA thriller. I believe this one's been out for a while. Pay close attention and you might solve this. On Monday afternoon, 5 students at Bayview High walk into detention. Bronwyn, the brain, is Yale-bound and never breaks a rule. Addie, the beauty, is the picture-perfect homecoming princess. Nate, the criminal, is already on probation for dealing. Cooper, the athlete, is the all-star baseball pitcher, and Simon, the outcast, is the creator of Bayview High's notorious gossip app. This sounds like a modern-day Breakfast Club situation, except dark and thrillery. The next book I have is called Witches Get Stuff Done by Molly Harper. Molly Harper is one of my favorite authors. I have read a lot of her books. She did a werewolf series several years ago that was really entertaining. She writes kind of humorous fantasy, I think. And so this one is, again, in the same vein as I think her other series, romance, paranormal romance, fantasy, humor, that type of thing. So I'm excited to read this one. The next book I have is another Melissa Albert book. I love her writing. This is called Tales from the Hinterland. So this book is actually from a different series of books that she wrote, The Hazelwood, which I have. I'll just pull it up. So The Hazelwood is here. It's a duology. There's one other book in this set. It's called The Northwoods, I think. But within this book, there is a fairy tale book that's talked about called Tales from the Hinterland. It didn't actually exist. It was created by this author, and then I think she went and wrote Tales from the Hinterland. So this is a really pretty copy. It's got, some illustrations, some nice pages in here. And so these are the fairy tales that are referenced in this series of books here. And so this, The Hazelwood and The Northwood, they're books about a series of dark fairy tale characters who come to our world, and there's one in particular who has grown up in this world who doesn't know that she's actually not part of this world. She has no idea that she actually comes from the hinterland, which is where all these stories take place. And so this book is a physical manifestation of a book within a book. So if you're looking for a new duology, I highly recommend this. And then maybe picking up this if you end up liking it, because these are where the stories of the characters in the other books come from. I got one more Melissa Albert book called Our Crooked Hearts. And I think this is another YA novel. Let's see. Secrets, Lies, Super Bad Choices, Witchcraft. The suburbs right now. 17-year-old Ivy's summer break kicks off with an accident, a punishment, and a mystery. A stranger whose appearance in the middle of the road, in the middle of the night, heralds a string of increasingly unsettling events. Sounds spooky, creepy, and great. I also picked up The Ministry of Time by Kayleigh Bradley, an ingeniously imagined, hilarious romp through time, space, and the human heart that announces an exhilarating new voice in contemporary fiction. The next book I have is called Really Good Actually by Monica Heisey. I think this book has been around for a little while, but it got rave reviews. Maggie is fine. She's doing really good, actually. Sure, she's broke. Her graduate thesis on something obscure is going nowhere, and her marriage only lasted 608 days. But at the ripe old age of 29, Maggie is determined to embrace her new life as a surprisingly young divorcee. Now she has time to take up 9 hobbies, eat hamburgers at 4 a.m., and get back out there, sex-wise. With the support of her tough-loving academic advisor, Maris, her newly divorced friend, Amy, and her group chat, naturally, Maggie barrels through her first year of single life, intermittently dating, occasionally waking up on the floor and asking herself tough questions along the way. Laugh out loud funny and filled with sharp observations, Really Good Actually is a tender and bittersweet comedy that lays bare the uncertainties of modern love, friendship, and our search for that thing we like to call happiness. So, I forgot, I have one more. Holly Jackson book, As Good as Dead. This is the last book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. So I had the first and second book for quite a while. I just recently finished the second book, and the third one arrived right on time for me to finish the series. And this is the biggest book out of the three. It's like 450 pages. It's huge, but the text isn't too small, so who knows. But I'm excited to finish the trilogy and find out what happens. Oh, just kidding. I have one more Holly Jackson book. I think this is the last one, for real. This is the last one. This is Killjoy, and it's a novella that goes along with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I believe this one is supposed to take place after the trilogy. Yes, 6 suspects, 3 hours, 1 murder. Pip is not in the mood for her friend's murder mystery party, especially one that involves 1920s fancy dress and pretending that their town is an island called Joy. But once the game begins, Pip finds herself drawn into the make-believe world of intrigue, deception, and murder. Because, of course she does. The next book I have is called Enchanted Hill. It's by Emily Bain Murphy, and this, I believe, is a historical fiction / mystery thriller. A piercing and poetic look at the grit beneath the glitter of America's rich and powerful in the 1930s. Glamour, tricks, and betrayals keep the pace galloping and the story enthralling. So the 1930s, glitz and glamour of America, it sounds very Gatsby, and it is a fascinating time to read about. And I love this cover. It just seems so dark and mysterious. The next books I have kind of all go together. It's a duology, or maybe it's actually a series. It's called The Left-Handed Booksellers of London by Garth Nix. Okay, so I think this is the first one. In a slightly alternate London in 1983, Susan Arkshaw is looking for her father, a man she has never met. Crime boss Frank Thringley might be able to help her, but Susan doesn't get time to ask Frank any questions before he is turned to dust by the prick of a silver hat pin in the hands of the outrageously attractive Merlin. Merlin is a left-handed bookseller, part of an extended clan of magical beings who police the mythic and legendary old world when it intrudes on the modern world, in addition to running several bookshops. Susan's search for her father strangely overlaps Merlin's quest to learn how his mother died. Who or what was her father? Susan and Merlin must find out as the old world erupts dangerously into the new. So, fantasy, thriller, mystery, historical fiction. And the second book in this series is called The Sinister Booksellers of Bath. And then I picked up Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz, also by Garth Nix. This, I believe, is a series of short stories. Yeah, it's a collection of 8 stories plus a never-before-published story featuring Sir Hereward and his sorcerer's puppet companion, Mr. Fitz. And that's all I really know. And honestly, I mean, a guy and a puppet playing chess on the cover. The stories have to be fun, right? Oh, I think it says Stories of the Witch Knight and the Puppet Sorcerer. This just sounds really fun to me. All right, I have a few more. I don't know, we're probably on 50 or something at this point. I've lost track of counting. Are you counting? Next, I have Never by Jessa Hastings. This is a reimagining of Peter Pan and Wendy. I got this off of a recommendation from a booktuber because, as I said before, I love retellings and reimaginings. And Peter Pan is one that I actually haven't really read any retellings of, but I think that there's a lot of room in the story of Peter Pan and Wendy to go all kinds of different ways. Growing up, Daphne always knew Peter Pan would come for her, the way he'd come for her mother and her grandmother Wendy before that. The Darling Girls. Their stories are all the same. The forever young boy at their window after their 13th birthday and the shimmering magical land behind a star. So, in this book, Wendy is the great-great-grandmother. Next, I have A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie Irwin. I think this is a Regency romance with maybe a hint of comedy. When shy Miss Eliza Balfour married the austere Earl of Somerset 20 years her senior, it was the match of the season, no matter that he was not the husband Eliza wanted. Now, 10 years later, Eliza is widowed. Suddenly, she is left titled, rich, and, for the first time in her life, utterly in control of her own future. And it looks like perhaps two guys are vying for her attention. The next book I have is kind of got messed up. It's called Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. And this book is about 4 retired women who used to be assassins, who are now being hunted themselves. They've spent their lives as the deadliest assassins in a clandestine international organization. But now that they're 60 years old, 4 female friends can't just retire. It's kill or be killed in this action-packed thriller. The next book I have is Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. Again, I think this is a book that's been around a while. It was a Good Morning America book club read, and it involves time travel. I got a lot of time travel books this time around. I love reading time travel books. So this one says it's New Year's Eve 1982, and at the stroke of midnight, Una Lockhart will turn 19. As the countdown begins, Una faints and awakens 32 years in the future in her 51-year-old body. Greeted by a friendly stranger in a beautiful house she's told is her own, Una learns that with each passing year, she will leap to another age at random. I can't even imagine what life would be like if on your birthday every year you just leaped forward or backward into some random year that you had no control over. But I would imagine that the story that you could weave around something like that is amazing. The next book I have, I think it's a thriller. It's called Look in the Mirror by Catherine Steadman. When Nina's father dies, she's left something in his will, a gleaming dream vacation home in a balmy tropical paradise. She'll find out the hard way that what you inherit from those you love can end up costing your life. I mean, that's kind of awful, but probably makes for a great book. Okay, next I have American Royals by Catherine McGee. Another one that's been out for a while and I've had my eye on for a long time, saw it on sale and decided it was time to pull the trigger. What if America had a royal family? So this is a book that asks the question, what if George Washington had decided to accept becoming king instead of president? Where would we be today? And his descendants would be America's royal family. Next, I have A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Again, haven't read T. Kingfisher, but seems like a really popular and well-liked author. This is a haunting Southern Gothic from an award-winning master of suspense. A House with Good Bones explores the dark, twisted roots lurking just beneath the veneer of a perfect home and family. The very last book I have is Where Sleeping Girls Lie. I am not even going to try to pronounce the author's name. I'll just hold it up for you because I do not want to butcher this person's name. It's like I keep stumbling into a dark room, searching for the switch to make things bright again. Sadie Hussein is starting her 3rd year of high school, this time at the prestigious Alfred Nobel Academy boarding school, after being homeschooled. Misfortune has been a constant companion throughout her life, but even Sadie doesn't expect her new roommate, Elizabeth, to disappear after Sadie's first night, or for people to think she had something to do with it. I love the cover. It's clearly a mystery of some sort, probably again with some sort of fantasy, paranormal, sci-fi element to it. Another book that sounds creepy and fantastic. Okay. Hi Tucker, thanks for joining me again. So that's it. We've made it to the end of my haul, all 59 books that are now on my physical TBR, and I have no idea how I'm actually going to read all of these books, but I'm excited. Oh, no, Tucker's not excited. He's bored, as you can see by the yawning. Maybe, what about this one? Do you want to read this one? This looks good. It's got birds, you see? You like birds? No? Well, I hope you enjoyed my haul. This will probably be my last haul for a while, but you never know. I might see a book or two that I like and end up with a haul sooner rather than later. But I hope you have a great day and take care, and thanks for joining us. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate all the support, and I'll see you later. Bye. Tucker, say bye. Say bye. Tucker says bye too.